Alright, what we're going to learn about today is parabolas, which are one of the four types of conic sections. And if I took a cone where I have an upper nap and a lower nap, if I took it and sliced it from one of the sides and the top or the bottom, you get a shape that looks like a parabola. Think of taking a party hat and cutting down the side of it, and then looking at what the shape you cut out, it would look like a parabola, similar to something like this, or they can go left and right as well. Alright, and you probably remember graphing these first two shapes in Algebra 2, but today I'm going to show you that you can actually graph them left and right. Although those aren't functions because they failed the vertical line test, we can still graph those. Alright, when you're graphing parabolas, you can either have an axis of symmetry, which is this red dotted line here, that is either vertical or horizontal. Now if it's horizontal, our parabola will either open up to the right or to the left. Alright, in this case, our axis of symmetry is vertical. Alright, and if we were to graph this, we would know it's vertical because my x term, my x values are being squared. Alright, and just to get some vocabulary, this blue dot in the middle here, that's called the focus. This black dot is known as the vertex. This line along the bottom is known as the directrix. And the line that goes through the focus that connects on the parabola is known as the Latus Rectum. Alright, and one of the properties about parabolas, or how you would draw them, is the distance from the focus to any point on the parabola is the same distance from that point to the directrix. So those would be the same distances. Alright, those would be the same distances. One other thing, the distance from the focus to the vertex is p, and the distance from the vertex to the directrix is also p, and the distance from one endpoint of the latus rectum to the other endpoint, that entire distance is 4p. Alright, so just keep those in mind as we graph. Alright, so if we were to graph x plus 1 squared equals negative 8 times y minus 2, you notice that your x values are being squared, so I know this is going to open up either up or down. Because this value right here is a negative 8, I know it's going to open down. Alright. The vertex, just like when we graph circles, the vertex is the opposite of this, negative 1, and the opposite of this, positive 2. Keep in mind, my x value came from my x parenthesis, my y value came from my y parenthesis, and what we'll do is we'll graph that. Alright. Next, we have p. We're going to skip that for now, and we're going to go right down to the length of the latus rectum. The length of the latus rectum, remember, goes through the focus and it connects 2 points on your parabola. The latus rectum length is always the absolute value of this number. So in this case, it's going to be 8. And if you remember from our standard form equations, the p value, the latus rectum was always 4 times what p was. So to find p, take this number and divide it by 4. P is equal to negative 2. We're going to be using that as a distance, so we're always going to want to use the absolute value of negative 2, which is just 2. Alright, so if I were to graph these, I know that my vertex is at negative 1, 2. I know this is going to open down. Our parabolas always wrap around the focus. So if my p-value is 2, I'm going to go down 2. Right? The directrix is always on the opposite side of the focus. If my focus is down here, my directrix is going to be 2 values up. Alright, and it always goes opposite the axis of symmetry. Alright, so now I know my focus is at negative 1, 0. And my directrix is a line. It goes through the y-axis, so its y is equal to 4. Alright. Since we know the length of the latus rectum is 8, from your focus, go out 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, which makes a total length of 8, and your vertex will go through these points, making your parabola. All right, and here we have a parabola. It's written in general form. The way you know this is a parabola is because you only have one squared value. My x value is not squared, so I know it's going to be a parabola. And what we want to do is we want to isolate our y values and get everything else over on the right side. Our x and our constant, move it to the right side. All right. Now that I've moved my y values on the left and everything else on the right side, what we want to do is we want to complete the square for the y values. And remember, if I add something on the left side, I'm going to have to add it to the right side as well. Half of -6 is -3. -3 squared is 9. If I add a 9 over there, I'm going to have to add a 9 over here as well. And now we can rewrite this as y minus 3 squared equals 4x plus 0. All right. And if you wanted to, you think of this as x plus 0, which might make things a little bit easier when you find your vertex. All right. So looking at this, does it open up or down, left or right? I know my y values are being squared, so it's going to tell me it opens left or right. This value right here, which is the length of the lattice rectum, is positive, so I know it's going to open up to the right. All right. The vertex is at what makes this 0, 0, and 3. The length of the lattice rectum is 4. And remember, P is always 1/4 of the lattice rectum. So if you take 4 and divide it by 4, you get the P value of 1. So what we're going to do is go ahead and graph our vertex, and from there we'll also be able to graph our focus and directrix as well. All right. So I graphed my vertex at 0, 3, and I know that my P value is 1. So because this is opening to the right, my parabola is going to wrap around my focus. So my focus is 1 unit to the right of that. My directrix is going to be 1 unit to the left of that. Right. So the point for the focus is at 1, 3. And the line for the directrix, it goes through the x-axis, so its x is equal to -1. Now we know the length of the lattice rectum is 4, so from my focus, I'll go up 2 and I'll go down 2, giving a total length of 4. And from your vertex, just draw a parabola through those 2 points, and you're done.